Today, I want to talk about post-occupancy. What does it mean? What are the elements? What are some of the more common mistakes that happen with it? What a post-occupancy is, and it's very common, is when a house sells, the amount of time that the seller needs to stay in the property after closing. So there's a lot of different elements that's happen in order for this to happen properly. And there's a couple of mistakes that happen all the time. So I'm going to go over the three mistakes that are most common with a post occupancy, and then I'm going to talk about the elements about this post occupancy. So the first mistake is that there is nothing drafted, so that it's a verbal agreement. They say, yeah, go ahead, you can stay in the property a couple days, no issues. They stay. There's nothing in protection there for the new buyers, because what happens if something happens? In a perfect world, nothing will happen. Everyone can trust themselves in the world, but you, as the buyer that are going to fork up all that money, needs to make sure that now your asset is protected. Second thing is that maybe they do draft something, but there's no insurance put on place. And typically, this one you want to get as the buyer. On a couple of deals that we deal with, sometimes they just want to make an addendum, so it's in writing, but they don't require the buyer to get the insurance. And what's important is that when there's a sale of the house, there still needs to be what the insurance agents call an insurable interest. If you're unable, and this is not legal advice, make sure that you seek legal counsel when it comes to this. When a house sells, the insurable interest shifts from the seller, who is the owner, to the buyer, who's the new owner, because the seller might not treat the property in the same way as a homeowner would for homeowner's insurance. And typically the type of insurance that you want is called HO3/DP3 for homeowner and general liability. The last thing that is commonly forgotten, this is the third mistake, is a security deposit. So this is different from a rental rate. This is different. You typically at closing want to hold in escrow some amount of money, depending on how much time they're going to be there. So you have a security deposit. So if something happens, there's something in place there to protect the new buyers. So the elements, we have a couple of elements here in order to fulfill the post-occupancy agreement. You need to have the rider. So you have the sale of you have your contract, and at the bottom you have a rider that you need to fill out. You need to have the contract drafted by an attorney. If you've done a couple in the past, you can go ahead and use those templates. Each one's a little bit different, so I always recommend talking to an attorney to draft that. An agreed upon escrow security deposit. This is what I mentioned earlier. A per diem rate. So what's the seller going to be charged in order to live there, whether it's free, whether it's a couple $100 a day, whatever it is. Per day is typically the way that this is met. Insurance held, make sure that typically the buyer needs to hold the insurance since they have the insurable interest, but go through your insurance agent to find that, but make sure that the home is secure. If there's a fire, you want your home, your asset protected. And finally, ramifications, if there's damages or the seller refuses to leave. So agreed upon ramifications, agreed upon security deposit, those two are kind of tied in, and all the other elements. So that's it. That's your little crash course for post-occupancy. And if you ever find yourself in this position, those are the elements that you want to at least consider. So that's it for this video. Hope that everything works out.